We have a board of directors. Tom is the vice president, and I don't think we have any other board members here tonight with us.
Though they may drift in.
They might drift in. I live down on by Ronald Bog, and I've lived in Shoreline for 16 years now. For those who are not familiar with the third floor of City Hall, the bathrooms are located, go down the hall past the elevators, turn right, and eventually you will see a sign. Wanted to remind everybody to turn their ringers off on their phones, please. And have an announcement that Meridian Park Neighborhood Association is going to be co-sponsoring a Meet the Candidates Forum and potluck at Meridian Park Elementary School on Saturday, October 5th, from 11 to 1. So you're all invited. And also come and hear the candidates, meet the candidates, and then also bring a dish to share so you can eat in community.
Will that be in the
cafeteria? Sorry?
No, will there be an email going out on that?
Yes,
Okay.
there will be. And it will be in the cafeteria. And Tom will be sending out the email. Okay. So our evening tonight has two portions to it. The first one is going to be a presentation by city staff on Proposition 1, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves as well as take it away. And then our second presentation is going to be by the Northwest Neighbors Network, and Darcy Beacon is going to lead that. And I'm just really looking forward to that too, because we have a number of seniors in our neighborhood who are facing challenges with staying in their homes. And so I'm really excited about what's possible with the Northwest Neighbors Network. And I'm very grateful to city staff for working late tonight to give us this presentation. So, Eric, do you want to come on?
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. So my name is Eric Bratton. I'm the Communications Program Manager for the city. We have Dan Johnson. He's our Fleets and Facilities Manager. We also have Hazel Delacruz. She's one of our capital project engineers. So we're going to be trading on and off doing the presentation tonight. So the first thing I just want to say is that this is a factual presentation of Prop 1. We aren't here in favor or against the proposition. That's up to Shoreline voters to decide whether they support this measure or not. We're just here to provide you factual information about what's on the proposition. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan to tell you a little bit about our current facilities and what it is we're talking about replacing, and then we'll go there.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So can you all hear me all right? I'll sit then. So Dan Johnson, Fleet and Facilities Manager. The thing about my experience in the facilities here is I grew up in them. I'm a lifetime Shoreline resident. I came to Shoreline in 1956 in the Ridgecrest neighborhood. I stayed for a while, and then my parents moved to the Echo Lake neighborhood, and where I went through elementary and all the way through high school. I then, as an adult, built a home in the Meridian Park neighborhood, and I currently live in the Richmond Beach neighborhood. So I hit 4 of the 14 neighborhoods. That's enough. But let's go ahead and get started and have the slide. So here we have the Spartan Recreation Center. I'm actually an actual graduate of that high school. It's pretty much the same as it was when I left it. We lease it from the school district, and we provide custodial service and operational maintenance inside. Most of the mechanical systems in there are maintained by school district staff. So that's the first building we're going to talk about. And we've got some usage data for you up here that we've been gathering. So last year, obviously we took the picture when it was nice out and the flowers were blooming, but we've got some data up there. I'll just read through 321 adult classes. My family takes some of those classes. So 100 preschool classes, we don't take any of those. 240 youth classes, 13,267 drop-in visits. So there's open gym, there's weight room, there's dance and movement rooms. 2,688 camp registrations, and we always have a wait list for children to get in the summer. 106 summer camps. When we get into the pool, you can imagine you drop your child off at either the pool or Spartan Center for the first portion of your day camp, and then in mass, you walk across the campus, pass, and go to the other facility. So they switch during the middle of the day. It's quite a migration. And then over 2,200 hours of rentals. So the building is very well used. And later on, if you have any questions about what's in the building or how it functions, I'm happy to answer that. Next slide. So the shoreline pool. In 1971, this pool opened, and on opening day, my two sisters and I swam in that pool. So it's I'm now charged with keeping it operational and keeping it hygienic and up to health code. And it's a loving job. It is a large job. So next slide, we can talk about some facts around the pool. It's open 4,250 hours of pool operation a year. So if you're a full-time employee, your job is about 2,080 hours. So that basically, think about how many hours that pool is really open. It starts at 5:30 in the morning and it'll go sometimes till 9, 10 at night. Over 4,500 course registrations where people sign up. You can get a punch card for passes, do specific courses, or just do drop-in. There's also 2,500 hours of additional drop-in opportunities. That's lap and recreational swims. We also do exercise classes. We have instructors that specialize in teaching water aerobics, other exercise and movement classes. And then we have 24,079 drop-in visits. So both of our facilities, Spartan Center and the pool, are very heavily used. In 2013, I wasn't working for the city of Shoreline. A little bit about me. I retired from the city of Seattle. I was the maintenance and operations director for Seattle Parks. I had 10 swimming pools and 23 community centers and about 438 parks to maintain. So I really look forward to coming home to Shoreline to live and work. And started with the city in 2016. When this assessment was done, they hired an engineering firm and a consultant team to look at some specific things in the assessment, and we call those long-term major maintenance projects, where we would take that and go before city council and ask for capital project dollars to take care of the scope items that were identified. So in 2013, they said, replace the roof structure on the accessible entry vestibule. Since then, we also have some issues with the current roof. When it leaks, you can't tell because it drips in a pool. So, seismic retrofitting. The building was built before a seismic drift criteria was actually understood for lateral forces and how things move. As a building ages, that board, that column, that piece of iron may degrade, and pretty soon things are counting on other things. They're not rated individually. They're more of an assembly as a building ages. The locker room slabs have lifted. We have problem with the lines underneath have settled. We've got some coatings we've had to put on there to keep them sealed up. And that is part and parcel to all the floor drains and the groundwater control. The slab underneath most of the bathrooms, locker rooms is having some issues as it ages. The HVAC and plumbing, the mechanical and electrical, we just call that MEP. We have a lot of things that were identified in that pool assessment that still need to be replaced that have not been. We're replacing things as we can. One of the big ones that was identified and was replaced was the main boiler out of that pool assessment. So that was 2013. And then through 2017 and 2023, we had the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space plan. And so there was considerable public outreach. I don't know how many of you attended an external parks program like Celebrate Shoreline, or the booths were up where you could state a preference on, what you thought was important to do in your city, my city too, for the parks and the buildings that we have. And the number one thing that we heard was build a community and aquatic center. place a proposal for a new community aquatic center before the voters by 2020, open a new facility in 2022. So right now, we're on schedule. Next slide, please.
So, so over the past 3 years, starting kind of with the pros plan, you know, the city's been reaching out to the community to see what they want to see in a community aquatic center, what they want to see in park improvements. Because again, with the pros plan, in addition to the community aquatic center, there's also strategic initiatives to improve the make park improvements to improve recreation opportunities, outdoor recreation opportunities. So we asked people what they wanted to see in park improvements and what they wanted to see in a community and aquatic center. And we did that through surveys and community meetings and dot exercises and lots of different things. And all of that feedback kind of went into and is reflected in the design for the new facility and the design for the park improvements. So then last year, the city manager appointed a park funding advisory committee made up of residents of Shoreline to look at how to pay for all of the improvements and to pay for a new community aquatic center. And then based on their recommendation, she made a recommendation to the council. And the council went back and forth, they discussed several things, and they finally came up with what we see now today as Proposition 1. They've placed that on the ballot. And now Hazel's gonna tell us a little bit about what exactly we're talking about.
Yeah, and I'll remind you, I'm Hazel Della Cruz. I'll stand up. I'm not that tall, so you can really see me. Yes.
And Hazel, I'm asking if you can project, because the sound is always very, very quiet on our thing. We haven't figured out how to get it any louder. So
okay.
we're wanting to have this recorded so that we can have it on our website, so people who are able to come tonight.
Okay.
Nice.
No
Have a
problem.
listen.
So, as a reminder, I'm within the Public Works Department, engineering. So, I'm happy to share the concept design. Design is something I love to do, or something I love to study. So, we provided you some information here, but I'll read it and give you more information about the concept design. So the shark will be approximately 75,000 square feet, and it will include 2 gymnasiums, community spaces for classes, rentals, and informal gatherings, 6,000 square feet of space prioritized for senior programming, including a commercial kitchen for meal services, a leisure and activity pool with play features such as a lazy river and a splash pad, and an 8-lane pool with fully accessible seating area for 500 spectators. It will also include a walking, jogging track, a courtyard, and other outdoor areas for community gatherings and play, exercise, weight, and cardio areas, locker rooms and showers, and about 880 parking stalls. In determining where to locate the new facility, the city looked at a number of different criteria. It needed to be in a central location with access to the greatest number of residents. It needed to be visible and easy to get to by transit, bike, and foot. It needed to fit into the city's overall development goals, which also included establishing a town center. It also needed to be located on a site that was big enough for the facility and facility parking and easy to park, and didn't have any major challenges to building. The city evaluated at several sites and located, and the location on Midvale met all the criteria, which is just about like a block away from here. So combining a pool and a community recreation center that has prioritized space for seniors creates efficiency and utility, staffing, and maintenance, centralizes services in one-stop facility, and creates a multi-generational hub or third place for a community. So in addition to Prop 1, we're looking into a couple of park improvements. The 4 parks selected for the improvements represented geographic equity, are in the neighbors that needed gathering places to promote a sense of identity, and did not receive funding from the 2006 bond measure. So funding from Proposition 1 would create Briarcrest Community Park out of east arm of Hamlin Park. Sorry, I was trying to, there's a lot of information on those parks, which is currently difficult to access from the Briarcrest neighborhood. The new play area, splash pad, and picnic shelter would provide a gathering space for the neighborhood and also serve the wider community. Brugger's Bog Park. The playground at Brugger's Bog Park is currently underwater several months out of the year. These park improvements would relocate the playground to a drier area of the park and install additional features. Hillwood Park. Improvements to Hillwood Park include one of 2 new splash pads, an expanded play area, a new picnic shelter, and a perimeter trail. The Richmond Highlands Recreational Center is home to Shoreline specialized recreational programs. Adding accessible amenities in this location would provide the possibility to expand programming for people with unique physical and mental challenges. While all Shoreline Parks playgrounds meet Americans with Disability Act ADA requirements, this playground will be designed with enhanced accessibility features that provide a place for people of all ages and abilities to play and enjoy in the park.
So that brings us to the fun part of any bond measure, is how do you pay for it? So current estimates show that constructing the Community and Aquatic Center, or the SHARC, so the acronym for it is SHARC, the Shoreline Aquatics Recreation and Community Center, SHARC, fitting. So the cost estimates for construction are about $69.1 million, and that includes the cost, inflating the cost for construction in 2 years. Property acquisition is about $19 million. So the total cost for the community and I keep saying it right, Aquatics and Recreation Community Center is $88.1 million. The Shoreline School District, because they are such a big user of the pool and because their teams use the pool for competitive swimming, they've agreed to contribute $2.43 million to the project. And then with the park improvements cost about $17.9 million. So the total cost of the Proposition 1 and the bond measure would be $103.6 million. So if Proposition 1 passes, the city will sell general obligation bonds, and those bonds will then be paid back through a property tax. So if you look at the median price of a home in Shoreline, so in 2018, the median price of a home is $480,000. Again, it's important to remember that we're talking about assessed value, not market value. Market value is going to be usually higher than your assessed value. So this is assessed value. So the median valued home in 2018 was $480,000. So it would be a net increase of about $20 more than what you're paying now. And then so with this bond measure, the state allows deferrals and exemptions for certain people who meet income requirements. So seniors who meet income requirements and people with some disabilities also who meet income requirements can get deferrals or exemptions. You can find out more information about those on the King County Assessor's website. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions you have about Proposition 1.
Why are you doing away with 2 baseball fields when we don't have enough as it is?
So we saw all the park improvements. Those are preliminary designs. There's still
Eric, can you repeat the question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Somebody asked you a question, you can
Yeah,
repeat the
sure.
question.
So he was asking, why are we getting rid of one of the fields? You're talking about the Hamlin Park? Fields, yeah.
And the one over here at Richmond Highlands.
The Richmond Highlands, yeah.
The first
So-
picture you had, I don't know which park it was.
I think it was the Hamlin
Okay, Hamlin
Park,
and,
yeah,
and
and
this
the
one
Richmond
over here.
Highlands. So
Because it's short.
the designs that we see right now, those are kind of the preliminary designs. So every park that we have that will, if Proposition 1s, will go through a design process. So while that's kind of the idea at the moment, there's still a design process. So they could change, depending.
Having
So,
it or not having it?
Hmm?
You mean to have it?
So there's a possibility that they could, some of the ball fields could remain. We don't know yet. So we've been talking to the different leagues that use our fields
Right.
to figure out what their needs are and figure out what is needed. I think when we were making the designs, we felt we could accommodate everyone and everyone's needs. But again, these aren't set in stone, so there's a possibility for design changes once we get into the design phase for each park.
So that's why you're not maintaining them right now too, right?
We still maintain them, yeah.
Well, the Richmond Highlands, the one on, Linden Avenue, that hasn't been maintained
Do
at
you know
all.
that one?
Right, so, of course, we're out of ball season right now, but
Right.
coming into spring, so, our parks crews try to get out there and dress the fields and, redo the bags and do some turf maintenance and make sure the irrigation is working. All of the fields in Charlotte, actually, at Richmond Highlands, I played Little League there.
Right.
And, it's a well-used, overused field that really needs, a project to bring it back up to nice playable standards.
Well, there's two baseball fields, one next to the building
Yes,
and the one on
One.
Linden Avenue.
yes.
That hasn't been aerated or whatever you do to stir up the dirt. You can see weeds going all across that. And that brings me to the other question, but the soccer field, the Shelby Park, that's all dirt. How come we don't roll-till that, so people can play soccer on that?
We can ask our parks maintenance workers
Is that Kurt?
about that. That's
Yeah, it's
Mr. Kirk Peterson, yes.
Yeah.
So, but, and I should mention that all of these, one of the things I have to do is maintain all of our physical buildings, just like Kirk has to maintain the parks. So in any measure such as this, there is what we call an O&M cost, an operations and maintenance cost, that we have to carefully examine because we have to keep all our buildings or all our fields up to a standard. And as Eric said, these 4 parks in Proposition 1 did not receive any capital infusion of dollars or refreshment in the 2006 levy, so they're way overdue, and I believe that's why the Parks Funding Advisory Committee considered them for, work this time.
Well, they say some of these parks need maintenance anyway. I mean, like Innis Arden Reserve and other things, the trails, they haven't been taken care of. And I've talked to Kurt about that too.
Okay,
Okay.
keep talking, we need to hear
I
from you.
mean, in other words, what's the point of having all these parks redone if you can't maintain them? I mean, like the trails, Innis Arden Reserve and, some of Shoreview Park needs some, maintenance on it too. So we have all these parks done, are we gonna have the maintenance, done on them too, continually?
Like I said, we haven't had a repair on any of these parks for many, many years, so I would say yes, if this were to pass, you could expect a refreshment of these parks, which then they become easier to maintain.
Right.
So,
But what about the existing parks?
May I add something, because I went to this presentation when Eric Friedley did it, and what he said was that there are different pots of money that are used for maintenance versus creation.
Okay.
So, but I'm encouraging you very much to talk with Kirk about it, and you can talk with Eric about it too.
I'll talk to Kurt.
Okay. So, but anyway, I just wanted to let you know that there's park impact fees, which are something that is money that comes from developers who want to build something. They have to pay in to then make sure that there's enough green space. And am I getting this right?
yes, I believe
There's
so.
enough green space. And that's different than this pot of money.
Well, I'm just saying, if we're gonna have these, hopefully there's gonna be maintenance on them compared to what we have now on some of these parks.
Yes,
So,
and the other thing that I would like to add is that I believe that Shoreline also relies a great deal on volunteers helping with fixing up the parks.
There are a lot of volunteers who do a lot of work in the different parks.
Yes.
well, I see that, it's blackberries, they pull all the invasive plants that are native to Washington. But I see, they do that over in Shoreview Park and Bourne Creek, I see, and even over at Hamlin, whenever I get over there.
Question there, sir?
Yeah, I have a question, and I'm sorry I came in late, so I might be asking other things that you've already covered. Was there a primary reason why Prop 1 wasn't broken into 2 pieces? Now, if we were looking to fund these parks, typically we're very amenable to maintaining parks or whatnot, and so if that levy was on the ballot versus the shark, is that what you called it?
No.
Was there a reason why those weren't split separate measures on the ballot?
You know, that's a question you'd have to ask the council. That's a decision the council made you know, they felt it probably had a better chance of passing if you combined it as opposed if you separate things out.
Correct.
But that's a political decision that the council made, or a decision the council made.
I was assured that you would probably say that, so then I would probably have some concerns about spending $1/10 billion on a limited facility here in Central Shoreline. I mean, I think having a pool is fantastic, and having a senior resource center is fantastic, but spending $1/10 billion to include 4 parks is asking a lot, and if I have my numbers correct, he said 19 million for the land.
For the land, yeah.
And then we potentially wouldn't build for a couple years, and I don't know about where we all live kind of in Meridian Park, and so real estate isn't flying off the shelves anymore, right? We're kind of in a softening market, so if we waited a little bit, would that $19 million come down? Who knows? I spoke with someone at the city, and they said, potentially every single month that we wait is $200,000 more expensive. So I don't know if that's gonna continue to be the case if the real estate market is softening or not.
Could I speak to that particular
Correct, yeah.
point there? So Dan Johnson, facilities manager, so
Okay.
the $200,000 figure is, not in land values, it is in construction value. The cost of construction in the region is going up dramatically. And that figure that you were given had to do with just construction costs.
Sure.
So when you talk about, we get the land and then it takes us a while to get going. Actually, we have to be ready if Proposition 1 passes to move extremely rapidly to gather our final public comments and obtain a designer and begin the project. So there'll be no moss on our plan to implement once we're told we're going ahead, if we do.
Okay.
So
No, I appreciate that, Dan, thank you. And then what's the measure that it needs to pass by? Is it 60%?
60%, yeah.
Okay, so I got that correct. And then maybe why not public-private partnership when you're talking about something of this scope? How come we didn't necessarily look at that? Because the pool, my understanding and doing a little research, is not revenue generating, right? And so there's no chance of breaking even remotely close to even. So how we looked at public-private partnership, and, you know, how can we, you know, we're developing everywhere. Trees are getting cut down, you know, this could be a dynamic process. So if builders wanna come in, why not have them put some of the cost?
I actually can speak a little bit to that. The Parks Department, Eric Friedley, actually, we work very closely because most of the facilities I maintain are recreational facilities that the Parks Department manages. When you talked about public-private partnership, I know that council directed us to look at endowments and foundations and speak. I think they spoke with the Seattle Parks Foundation about endowments. And then partnerships, we actually did, as Eric mentioned, come up with a really excellent partnership with the Shoreline School District. They're so committed to school swimming and competitive sports. They wanted to make sure that this project had a big enough pool with spectator viewing. It was in early concept drawings a 6-lane pool. They came in and wanted an 8-lane pool and additional spectator seating for it, and so they figured out what the difference would be, and they're I believe giving us
$2.43 million.
for that additional. So we did get some partnership out of the school district. They were a willing partner, and we also looked at endowments as directed by the electeds here.
Correct.
And we also will continue to look for grant funding, as we always look for grant funding to help with projects like this as well.
But then how would that impact our ability to pay taxes?
Yeah.
If you guys
So then you don't
only
have to-
get a
if
$12
we-
million grant,
Then you don't have to, you don't have to sell bonds for that $12 million
Right.
part. You sell bonds for what you need,
Correct.
so you wouldn't spend, have to get the bonds for that full amount.
But if you sell a bond for $100 million.
You don't sell one bond for 100, so you
or
sell a
if
series,
there's
you do a series of bonds, so you
for
don't have to.
$100 million, and then you come in on the tail end and get a $12 million grant, what happens?
But you wouldn't sell, the last bond you're gonna sell is gonna be, you would know if you're gonna have that $12 million to help with the construction before you sell that last series of
Right.
bonds.
I think the answer you're looking for is, if a project costs so much and we have to bond that amount, we begin to build it and a partnership appears. We've already sold the bonds. I actually report to the finance director, and what I've heard is that then the debt is retired early. So that, the slide you showed had a 20-year bond projection on it. So if there were to be additional fundings that came available, you would simply retire the debt before it matured.
Okay.
Pay less interest and be done with it.
Gotcha. Sorry, I have another question.
Sure.
$200,000, that increases for construction costs?
Yes.
Right?
That's
What
it.
happens if the real estate market softens? Does that number continue to be $200,000?
That's an interesting question because usually there's cycles and, there's peaks and valleys. And so as land values go, construction values can go, but they don't go month to month. Everything that is under permit now is going to get built. The market is saturated. There are no skilled craft workers to do additional projects. So for that condition to turn around the other way and be a very favorable market to build in, takes quite a while. Things usually go on about a 10-year cycle. I've been in Shoreline for many years and worked in construction in Seattle, and we actually, even in 2007 when we had the Great Recession, because we're a Pacific Rim resource-rich part of the nation, we didn't have it as bad as other neighborhoods, states, and agencies, and we recovered faster.
It recovered faster for sure.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, and so we don't know. We're going by what our financial advisors and our tax analysts tell us, and then we look at what jobs are going for. When you design and bid a project, they have what's called an engineer's estimate.
Mm-hmm.
All the projects that are going that route are coming in over the estimate because of this inflation that you asked the question about. One of the ways there are a couple different strategies to eliminate that we're considering, but we can't do anything until we know the outcome of this. There are some alternative contracting methods where you partner with the contractor, agree on the fixed price,
Mm-hmm.
and have allowances for every component. But we don't know if we get to go that way because we don't know if we're going anywhere because this is a ballot measure. So we will be as good of stewards of the taxpayers' dollars as we can.
Sure.
Moving forward. We just need to know what direction we're moving.
Okay. I guess final question for now is, there's the pool at the YMCA.
Yes.
There's Yost Pool, which I think isn't technically in Shoreline.
It's in Edmonds.
It's in Edmonds, but
Outdoor pool.
outdoor pool, but the YMCA kind of utilizes that facility, potentially, I don't know. Was there talk in working with like the YMCA or other major organizations to see what the impact of building a new pool would be on particularly their business or the overall community, or if they actually wanted to do business with the city of Shoreline to have more of a partnership?
My understanding is that there was, and our Parks Department did talk with the YMCA, is aware of the regional aquatics demand. At the end of the day, what we're faced with is phenomenal growth in this region. And a little bit earlier, I put up the numbers of attendance, the program hours, and currently in Shoreline, with everything we have, if you factor in the expanded growth, there isn't enough room
Right.
as it is. So we're we're under-resourced now for area to recreate, and with increased density, with people coming with the light rail projects that are being constructed, refurbishment of parks, and creating a combined shark center is advantageous. The existing facilities around here, Klahia is another one over in Edmonds, a private swim club.
Sure.
Everybody is at capacity now.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, I know some people that are on the city council in Kenmore, they're looking to do a pool, you know, like Forest Park, if Life is Perfect, they'd have a pool. So if everyone's looking to do some type of pool, like why not lean on neighboring partners to be able to, you know, share that overall cost? Yeah, I mean, I have 2 young kids, and so we get up to the Linwood pool. It's a really nice facility, you know, there's some things that I'm sure you guys are looking at what they're doing and integrating into the shark facility. But there could be a better mousetrap, you know what I mean, in terms of what we're asking Shark to do for us, you know? As a long-term resident, spending that kind of money without senior services and stuff like that, it's a couple of basketball courts, a nice facility, track, and it's right in the city in prime property. So those are some of my concerns. I'm sorry to hijack the meeting.
No, these are great questions,
But
actually.
it's just, you know, it's something to think about, because, you know, Shoreline's a great city, and when we could afford to live here for the last 17 years, we bought here because it was less expensive than Seattle, and that's not necessarily the case anymore. But not looking at Prop 1, there's other issues in the community, you know, homelessness and all that stuff, that those dollars, if it's not here, they could be going elsewhere.
Absolutely. Let's start in the back row, ma'am, you over there, and maybe one of the other panelists would like to answer. I'll take a break.
Great.
My name's Linda Cook, and I've lived here for over 50 years. I strongly support this, and I'm the last one to support anything that increases taxes. I mean, I'm a real terror about that. But when the Shoreline pool had to shut down for several months for repairs, I went to Linwood because it's the only pool in this area that I could find that was really equipped for serious exercise. The YMCA, it's a great pool, but the water's too warm, it's too shallow, you can't really do lap swims, you can't do deep water aerobics. It's not a good facility, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned. The other part of the Trojan Center, that is as old as dirt, and it looks it. The senior center is kind of embarrassing, quite frankly. It is so outdated, and the facility is so small and cramped. We've got parks coming out of our ears. I have never seen a park full of kids playing or people frolicking in it. Even with the Shoreline Days, I go to that. There's a lot of people there, but there's a heck of a lot of space that's not being used, even with those things going on. So I just feel like, you know, I came back to the pool in Shoreline because this is where I live, but it's crammed now. I don't know if you've ever been in there, but it's a very small facility. I swam with people in Linwood who went there because the Shoreline pool was so old and dilapidated and small. They would come back in a heartbeat. So anyway, I just think that there's a great need for it.
Thank you. I wanted to comment on the temperature, because we hear a lot about water temperature. So
It's very important, yeah.
yeah, it is. So the reason there are 2 pools, it's similar to Rainier Beach Community Center pool down in Seattle. Recreational swimming, the water likes to be about 85 degrees, because you don't move as much in there, and it's nicer, and so people like the warm pools. Competitive swimmers do not. They want a cooler pool.
You can't go fast.
Right. So the design of the Shark, actually 2 separate HVAC systems, 2 separate water management systems, about there's about 970,000 gallons of water between the two pools, is what we're currently estimating. So it's a lot of water management, but we know how to do that, and we know how to keep them separate. So I'm glad you brought up temperature.
Goldfish Swim Academy is gonna have 90 degrees of water. Right down here by Marshall's.
Yes. Let's go to the chairperson of the committee.
Well, I had a question from a neighbor who was not able to come tonight.
Sure.
And his question was, why a commercial grade kitchen? And my question to add on to that also is there going to be space at the Shark Center to have like the Arts Council Gala and that kind of thing? And will this commercial kitchen be something that is rented out to a caterer so there'll be income?
All great questions. I can actually answer some of that. So my experience in building these buildings at another agency down to the south, a commercial kitchen, if you think of it as it can actually cook food in it versus a catering kitchen, which can only heat food. So the distinguishing characteristic is a exhaust hood with a fire suppression system, a 3-stage dishwasher, flatware services, utensils, catering, and food prep area. They're generally have an exterior wall in them so you can accept deliveries and go to your recycle and compost center. So the commercial kitchen in the senior center is to prepare meals and to hold educational classes on cooking food. It is also to, it can be used for catered events, but it's a mixed and a shared use, and there'll be, it's all gonna have to be scheduled and worked out. So that was the first part of your question, and then your question was?
Is there a large room there that can be used for like the Arts Council Gala?
Yes, if we could, if we could go back to the floor plan here on this. So again, this is all in concept, and this is as far as we can go until we either have a yes vote or a no vote. So when you look at Art Gala and Plaza, so we've got a community room out in front of the building that's actually I'm due for shoulder surgery, somebody's gonna, one story that's a multi-purpose room with a folding partition. It's got a plaza to the south, it's got a courtyard to the north, and this is part of the entry sequence and entry spine into the building. So this whole area is the community's plaza, living room, deck, if you will call it. It has a splash pad here, pick up and drop off. So, and then within the building, there are other activity rooms. There's actually 2 stories to this building. You're seeing, this is on grade with Midvale, including the gym. The site slopes to the east, which is really ideal for construction because the earth already goes down here. You don't have to dig as much. You've got your 2 pools, your mechanical, your lockers, and then back to your activity spine, which actually sequences you from front to back of the building with the senior center down low. It also has activity rooms in it. There's also an equipment room here. These are all just concepts. Right now, we still have to align them and make it all work and get the plumbing in the right spot. We're very premature for that. So what was looked at in the concept, WRNS Studios was hired by the city to look at all the programming, all the space needs, and then they looked at the existing space in the pool and in Spartan Center and tried to decide, was that enough space, or did this next building, whatever we were gonna call it, need more space? So this is what they came up with, and the events you talk about actually can be handled all right here.
Outdoors?
And indoors. So this is actually a very large room here, and it has breakout rooms off of it, and its own restroom quad here, so you don't have to walk all the way to the other end of the building.
Question, I read the Shoreline Area News just about 3 months ago. They said the senior center in the news section is going to be half of what it is now.
Yeah.
So the senior center was actually a late add after we did our study on what we currently had for size. But when we looked at this land and where it was and where it would fit into the building, so the senior center, if you look just for that size versus what it is, you have to remember that that's a shared use, and seniors can use the whole building. So you've got this lobby spine here with all the breakout area. There were some pictures of that. So it's not just here's where the seniors are and here's where we swim. It is here is your shark center and it's available for you to use everywhere.
So we'll be able, let's say 10,000 square feet they can use or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and they can, and let's say you wanna go, do your event in the gym, we've got a double basketball court here, you know, you've got lots of them.
Okay, I went to one of these first meetings about 2 years ago, a year ago with Eric Fidel. I said, why don't you just tear up the old pool and put everything over there where it is now, instead of buying this land?
Right.
And also the school district said they would donate that pool land for you know, for this.
50 years.
Yeah, for 50 years. The thing is, you build it right here. What do we have? Nothing on prostitutes, drug dealers. They're gonna be going into this building. They're gonna be, just like the YMCA, they're being ripped off in their lockers all the time. Being over there where the school district is a little bit out of the way, but the buses still go by there. And I think that's where we should be, and they're donating that land. We don't have to purchase this land. It's too close to Aurora Avenue. I know that's one of the objectives they would, you know, try to sell us on, but I think it's the wrong thing.
I'd like to.
There's other people too.
Sure, I'd like to comment on that. So we actually, council reviewed the school district's offer, and so we had to look at a couple things. One is the land that they were offering was not to give it to us, but to lend it to us.
Right, that's for 50 years. And,
For 50 years, but they wanted exclusive programming, so we looked at the site, and we actually had the consultant look at it and compare it to this site. A couple things had to happen. The parking had to be down at the other end where my old high school shops are, which is not right at the center. The tennis courts would have to be replaced elsewhere at our expense, and we couldn't build everything at once. We could build on the tennis courts, and then we'd have to deconstruct the pool. So there would be a period in the construction sequence of up to a couple years where there were no aquatics and shoreline, because we had to build it, we had to tear it out and rebuild it. Or you could build it on the tennis courts and then build the community center later, but either way, some programming would shift and have to halt while construction went, where the way this works as proposed in the proposition is it gets built, the other facilities sunset, move into this, and there's no interruption in programming. So that was important to council.
Okay, but now you have to hold one or two security guards just because it's so close to Aurora Avenue.
I can speak about security. So I actually had the pleasure of building a police station right behind us last year, and I can tell you that I'm really proud of the Shoreline Police and how they keep our city. I know that there is crime in Shoreline. I know that when you design a building, we use crime prevention through environmental design. It's called CEPTED. So when I talked a little bit ago about activity spines, and there is a control sequence to all these buildings that you don't see, but it's there. I can tell you that in this building we have lockdown protocol, duress protocol, where buttons are pressed and police are there within 2 minutes. So that will be the same at this building. It's part of the system that we have in Shoreline that we're lacking currently in our existing facilities other than this building. So we are prepared for crime prevention through environmental design of the building and consider it a very important attribute.
Okay, so
I'm just gonna interject here, 7:57, I would like to just say we have room for one more question. And if there are more people that have questions, then I urge you to seek out.
Seek us out after the meeting. And sir, how about you?
Yes, Lloyd Wales. I've been here for a long time, and I'd like to speak up for the younger generation.
Is this a question? Is this a question, sir?
No, this is a suggestion.
A suggestion.
Just a suggestion. We've talked about the park, and we talked about the swimming pool and so forth, but I would like to see the Parks and Recreation would build a, what they call a skateboard bowl for the younger generation. Because as you said, we got more and more people coming in with people that's gonna be teenagers. You've got to have some kind of an activity for those other than swimming and going to the parks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And I just wanted to clarify when I was asking whether it was a question or a comment, because, Okay, so, I think at this point, we need to, wrap this, section up. And, as you all are gathering your things, I would like to ask that people turn to their neighbor and say what it is that you enjoy, love about Meridian Park. Anyone?
It's a beautiful place.
I will bet you.
There's passion.
I've been here for 48 years.
Is there any features about Meridian Park that you like? Either one of us? I don't.
Just a quick one, if I might, while they're doing that. The capital cost is one thing, but of course, is it carefully worked in all your spreadsheets and forecasts how the operating and depreciation and maintenance costs will affect the operating budget of the
It
city?
is, so I've actually kept data over the years from my experience in operating Seattle's community centers and pools and the children. So we have a cost model for ongoing O&M funds to keep this thing maintained, which is unusual to do, but we've done it. It's based on my experience. So it exists, and it covers custodial supplies, consumables like first aid kits, tables, chairs, utilities, equipment replacement, all of
And this can all be rolled into the operating budget of the city.
It will be rolled into the operating budget of the city because we will take the operating budget from Spartan Center and the existing pool and bring it right
Uh-huh,
in here.
okay,
And it's almost budget neutral.
okay. Just a quick aside, if I might, I used to live in Victoria, BC. I don't know if you know, but it'd be nice for everybody involved with this to at least be familiar with the fact they have a thing called the Commonwealth Pool there,
Yes.
which is a fantastically creative and interestingly done system. They have a library attached to it, in addition to a gigantic weight room, and they have 4 pools, and it's the home of the best diving team in Canada, and it's just a fantastic thing to see. It would cost something to modify this to be anywhere like that, but it's a real family-oriented community center, not on the main street. I'm very sensitive to those kind of comments here.
Yeah, no, that's a real good comment.
Yeah, at the last Shorelines, I talked to the police people who were there, and they're happy to say that they hassle the prostitutes as they come across 145th, and that's why we don't have them here. And it's pathetic. You go down there, and it's a different world. I came from Kenmore, and they decided, to not even have card rooms. They voted them out, even though it took 10% of their city budget out.
I was an executive for the city of Seattle before I retired, and I can tell you, Shoreline is doing really good with their police force versus Seattle.
That's for sure.
Our police force goes out every night and locks up the park restrooms, and our custodian opens them in the morning. So all of the crime in our parks really is minimized compared to what it is in Seattle. So we've got some great strategies here.
Since you're sympathetic and I've only 10 seconds, I try to explain to people, such as we have access to, that we're a bit of an island here in a way, because you got Latino drug gang people at 16 and 15 years old killing each other on Casino Road regularly, and needless to say, you have a whole lot of other people in the south end of Seattle doing exactly the same thing regularly.
We're holding our own.
So far.
So far, yeah. Thanks for your questions.
Thank you.
It is.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
We can't strategize about rental land, we can only get facts, but I take care of it, my wife slips to work today, and it's in bad shape. You can say that with confidence. Yes, sir.
So just so that I'm.
The director's name is Randy Witt, Hazel's boss is Randy, so he's roads and right away. Yes, yes. Yeah, go to Randy, just this is your city government. So, yeah, WITT, so if you just go to the staff directory on the Shoreline website, all his email and his phone numbers are there.
Okay, does he return calls?
Well, I'll let you be the judge of that, but I would hope so.
Well, Lance Newkirk, if you see him,
Okay, no,
Okay, I will tell Lance, I see Lance once in a while.
Yeah,
So, you know, I'll just give you a little advice. Monday night at council, you get 3 minutes on the podium, go in there, speak your mind, someone's gonna call you. Sure, sure. I'm sure he will call you back. They're all over the city doing stuff. And Lance has the largest crew in the city. I've got 2 people.
Darcy, are you ready to as soon as she's loading the presentation?
He gets in about 7 o'clock. And he leaves at 7.
It always looks different on this.
Thank you. Okay, yeah. Nice to meet you too. Hope to see you again.
Thank you. It's in a file, but just is labeled differently.
You guys are gonna have a little bit more of a meeting. Thank you for having us. Very nice. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of building a lot of these. I don't know if we'll get to do another one, but Hazel actually, she'll be involved in the project because it's public works. So, and then I'll be maintaining it, so. Yeah, so we're excited, thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Any questions, or we out? Thanks for your, you bet. Hang in there. Hang in there.
You can do better.
That looks So what we're gonna do is we'll probably end up turning this around so Don and I can do the besides.
You're not making a decision, but you're kind of the fire line.
Well, I figure once you got it, we'll turn it around, so between the two of us, we can manage the slides.
Which retired debt service. So it's accelerated.
There's a mouse. We don't have clickers in. If we had a clicker, I'm sorry.
Pardon me?
Did you say it was so much easier?
Oh, I was trying to figure out from there, would it be easier? I hate to, we can stand over here and then we can manage the slides without walking back and forth. Which would you, I don't want, you know, part of this, we wanna make sure folks can look where they want to look, so I do leave you up there, but I think we can manage. Hey, Sandy? Sandy.
Come to council on Monday,
Sandy.
sign up to talk to you.
Hey, Sandy.
Would you work for the council? And we have a city manager.
I'm just at 171st in that. Do you commute to someplace interesting from there?
No, so we have jobs here to maintain the current asset base, and she has a job to redevelop projects.
Have you been here
before? I was an Eric's communications officer. So our skin in the game is we take care of what is existing now. And if it passes, then we are involved in communicating about the change, building the change on the. That's what
It's
our
gonna
goal
change
would be.
things quite a bit.
I know, but Josie, you can get me on, just go to the city webpage for Dan Johnson. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
That's just on broader. Are you going to schools here?
Constancy.
No kidding.
You don't want to.
Like 3 or 4.
This one must be the projecting one.
That's be interesting, I'll be, that your experience with it, Marine Park or whatever, is good.
So Darcy, is this the projecting one? It
Yeah,
appears to be,
This,
has all the attachments?
right, well, this, all we need to do is advance the slides when the time comes.
Yeah, and that's just, right there.
Right there.
I can manage that. Thank you.
All right, so we have, two things. One is we have Susan, and I wanted to give you just a moment, I'm so sorry. So I'll just say a little, word. Susan is a, dedicated volunteer over at Twin Pond Gardens. And Twin Pond Gardens is a community garden that, grows a lot of produce, and then it donates it to, local, to the food bank. And so, would you like to
Sure.
stand up for a moment and just
So,
say?
I just have I'm doing some very passive recruiting. If anyone's interested in volunteering for the garden, our garden is over at the Twin Ponds. We have 14 plots. We've produced 2,000 pounds of produce so far this year that we've donated to the food bank. We do organic gardening, and it's a lot of fun. And so I have some contact information up on the table. So the kind of thing we're looking for. Weeding, planting, harvesting, watering, that kind of stuff.
Excellent. And can I talk with you after?
Absolutely, you bet.
All right, so, Darcy is going to, be the leader of this presentation, I believe. And, take it away, Darcy. I'm gonna just, go like this. Okay, a little quieter.
Well, I am Darcy Beacom. I'm with Northwest Neighbors Network. This is my partner in crime and my long-term love companion, Tom. Also a member of Northwest Neighbors Network. And in the back doing our AV slides is Sandy Moy, who is, I would say, as close to a founder that I know of NNN. So thank you very much for inviting us to come and really appreciate it. I'm your liaison. I'm your neighborhood liaison. So my role in coming here is to learn as we talk about NNN and hopefully give you more information about what we do. I was looking for volunteers, but also get input from you. And as we go through the next several months, really start to learn how Northwest Neighbors Network can be of a greater community asset. So first of all, how many of you had heard of Northwest Neighbors Network before? Do you, okay, good. Do you remember how you heard about it?
Shoreline Area News, I think.
Right, and that's, I learned about it in Nextdoor. But with the concept of aging in place, how many of you have heard or thought about aging in place? Big deal, it's a big deal. One of the things that Northwest Neighbors Network, which I'm also gonna refer to as NNN, simpler, faster, NNNers, is we're all about helping people live and age in their homes or their community as long as they can and as long as they want to. We do this through a bunch of volunteers. We do this through really learning what the community support is that is needed and wanted. So we're gonna talk about a little bit more about that, about 15 minutes maybe, and then we really wanna open it up for conversations and just hearing your ideas. We are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation in the state of Washington. We're also a registered charity in the state of Washington. So with that, I just want to talk just a little bit more about what it is we do. And I'm not going to read slides that you can read, all right? I'm going to try to put a little filler behind it. But one thing I do want to call your attention to is we are truly neighbors helping neighbors. We're an all-volunteer network. Our board of directors is all volunteer. We're small. It took, I don't know, 3 to 5 years of other folks really doing a lot of the legwork to be able to pull together all the requirements to make us a nonprofit, to make us viable, and to be able to be here today. We launched in February, and so we've been trying now to get out to the community now that we're established, we've got the infrastructure, and we have the volunteers and the members to support the community. One of the things that we know, AARP did a study in September of 18. Half of adults, 50 years and older, want to stay in their home and community as long as they possibly can. That same percent of the population is thinking, how can I do that? You know, I don't know about you guys, but you know, I'm in that demographic, and I'm starting to notice that things aren't working quite as easily as they used to work. We're still in our own home, and I can see it, but I can see a time in the future where it's gonna get a little harder to do that. I'm gonna need some help. I look for my parents, same scenario. They stayed in their home as long as they could, but they didn't have a lot of community support to help them do that. Everything had to be outsourced because all the kids were in different states. So with our structure of volunteers, with our structure of being in an age and place community organization, which started back in 1999 in Beacon Hill, Massachusetts. That was the first age and place community. It was formed by people like us who had the same idea. You know, I don't want to move. I have my community here. I'm blown away by how long people have lived in the same community. And that speaks volumes. Why would you want to leave when you've got everything here? So we know that's the case. The other thing we know is National Council on Aging has done a lot of studies. And they've learned through the studies, and as have other organizations, that social isolation is a huge, huge detriment to healthy living. The more people feel socially isolated, and that's because you retire. A lot of your connections are through work. Those move away, family moves away, friends move away for a lot of different reasons. So as an individual, our lives start to feel smaller, and you start to feel, I don't know how to, I don't want to go someplace alone necessarily. I don't have my friend who I used to go swimming with. I don't have my friend who used to go walking with. We, from an NNN community, are all about how do we bring that social activity back into somebody's life so that they trust the person who's coming. They trust the person, it becomes a new friend, a new organization, a new social network. So that's what we're about. We're not alone. We are one of 6 age and place villages in this greater Seattle area. The reason, and we're not, you know, they're all over Washington, but there are currently, as of a year ago, there are 240 established age and place villages across the United States. 45 states, Washington, D.C., it's also international, and there were at least 150 starting up. And it, again, it takes a while to be able to get going. So we're in good company. We've been able to take advantage of the experience and knowledge of some of these other villages who have gone through where we are at right now. And so we've had the benefit of that. If you want to learn more about the ones in our immediate area, we have a website, and it has our newsletter on it, and it talks a little bit about these 6 in particular. The one thing that is important, why are there 6? Why isn't there just one big group? It's because in order to support the community with the flavor of the community, what the neighbors really want, is we have to have a geographic boundary. If we were, as it is, we cover Shoreline, all the neighborhoods, Shoreline, Lake Forest Park, Linwood, Edmonds, and all of its various pieces and parts, Mount Lake Terrace, and Briar. So that's pretty big.
Yes.
And in order for us to be able, so we can't get bigger. To our south immediately is an organization called NEST, Northeast Seattle Together, and they stop at 110th, which is, guess where you guys start? Right at 110th. Yay! So we are part of, you know, you guys are in our territory. And the reason, again, for us to have that big of a group is we started really focusing on Shoreline and Lake Forest Park, because that's kind of where our roots are. We found that there was a need in the other outlying, what we would have considered outlying area neighborhoods. And we have interest there, and we have members there. And so we think we can support it. So that's part of why we do what we do and why we are as confined, if you will. It kind of feels confined to me until I start thinking about we need volunteers who are going to be able to support the members, and you have to be close enough to be able to commit. Oh yeah, I can go to that person's house, or I actually want to go to that particular event that they're doing, and I don't have to drive all the way down to Seattle to do it. So this is us. You may recognize a couple of those faces. This is one of the things that we do. We do it every other week. We do lunches where we get together at different locations. The social committee is all in charge of that. The members define what it is that we're gonna do. We help them put it together. But it's just a fun way to get, and you start to get to know people. And you start to create a whole new set of friends. And I'm not gonna, yes, go ahead, Joseph.
Sorry, I came in late. So, you mentioned you help seniors kind of stay in their homes and with the community and whatnot. And then you give them a myriad of services. I see grocery shopping, but what if the senior's kind of low income and whatnot? Is there a food bank here in Shoreline, or do you rely on Northwest Harvest?
Well, the question is, how do we support, I think, a lower income?
Sure.
And does Northwest Neighbors do that?
Yeah.
And I don't want to steal on Don's thunder. So number one, the answer was yes, there's a food bank.
It's right behind Ronald Methodist Church on Aurora.
It's a short, like
It's
city of
great.
Shoreline
Mhm.
food bank?
And the
It
other,
serves the city of Shoreline.
So
It's
who
part
runs
of
it?
it's part of the Northwest Harvest.
Network.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
Hope Link.
there's Hope Link, there's Sound Generations. One of the things we don't do, there's several things we don't do. One, if it requires a professional license, our volunteers don't do that. Even if they have that professional license, we're not covered for doing those types of services. We also do not want to duplicate services that are already provided elsewhere, because we're here to fill in gaps. And we're here to help people live in their homes by taking advantage of all the services, and then we're gonna give them more personalized attention in all likelihood than they get through some of the other organizations, but not to duplicate it. So I'm gonna let Don talk about some of the things we did.
Some of the things we do. We have two types of members. We have social members and we have full members. Social members are those people who are still relatively comfortable looking out for themselves, but they want that half of the equation Darcy was talking about, remaining socially active. So they want to do things like go on walks with other people, have lunch with other people. We did a outing to the Blado Reserve in the spring. We'll do another one this fall. We're gonna do a variety of social type of activities that get you out and about with other people. Full members are people who have realized, I'm one of 6 sibs, and most of them are older than I am. Hard to believe. But they're starting to encounter issues with, they don't think they should be driving. They're living alone, and it's difficult. And there are a number of issues, and I see what's happening to my sibs, and I see this, and one of the reasons I was attracted to Northwest Neighbors is I see this as filling gaps for these sorts of people. So probably number one popular thing is transportation of some sort. Transportation to medical appointments, transportation to shopping, and there are options. I mean, you could do Uber or something like that, and that's certainly an option, but it's somewhat reassuring that the same people will pick you up, take you shopping, go into the grocery store with you if you want, help you, take the stuff home and get it into your house. These are helpful things. Going to the doctor's appointment with you, that sort of thing. And that's transportation. The third kind of big category are chores. So you don't want to have to leave your house simply because you can't change light bulbs anymore. Or it's hard to change the batteries in the smoke detector because you shouldn't be up on a ladder, right? You really shouldn't. At some point in your age, you shouldn't. And we can help out with that sort of thing.
The technological support too is something that's getting a lot of attention. We have folks who are very savvy with social media, and other folks, I was loving the conversation you were having with the individual who had to leave, Cynthia, about, I don't do Facebook, I don't do email, I don't do, we don't know why, but the question is you don't do it because you're not comfortable with it, and no one takes the time to help you, because it can be really confusing. So one of the things that one of our volunteers does, and very patient person, she goes and helps this individual learn how to basically do what some of us might consider really kind of like really mundane tasks. But when you're learning how to change how you communicate and interact with the world, it can be really worrisome. So that's important. Caregiver respite. I don't wanna oversell that, because we're not caregivers, we're not CNAs, but how many of you have had to care for somebody or know somebody who's caring for somebody in their home? It's a loving, amazing gift that you're giving of yourself. It is also very difficult. And a lot of my father, my model for my caregiver was my dad, with my mom. And I saw how he gave so much of himself while she needed that care. He didn't give care to himself. And he wouldn't accept help. And I'm thinking, if we had had somebody that would have said, Don, his name was Don, why don't you let us come and read with Betty while you go off and do this other thing? Why don't you just go into your study? You'll still be here. It would have given him a break. You know, and that's a gift that our neighbor gives to another neighbor. And you know you can trust that person to come in. Maybe somebody just wants to go out and take a walk. And knowing that there's somebody there is part of what we do. Again, a neighbor, not a stranger, not a third-party agency. So those are things that I think are just really critical to think about in terms of a service that you can offer or you can think about telling somebody about. So, why become a member? Well, we are talking memberships. We're going to talk about dues in a little bit and why. So it's not free because we are nonprofit, but it does take money to run an organization. But number one is peace of mind. You already know whether you're a social member or whether you've decided to have a full service member or you have a parent, an aunt, or whoever. You only do one phone call or one email to ask for a service. The intake person takes a look at that, assesses it, looks at a list of the volunteers to see who's available, who has that talent, who said they're gonna do that, and connects that person up with you. You don't have to worry about it anymore. If you're, that's a full service. If you need a plumber, or you need a roofer, and you don't know who to call, and it's not a handyman service, because again, roofing requires a license. We will help find 1 to 3 people that are vetted by an organization called Consumer Checkbook. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Who does detailed background checks. They do independent stuff. They don't take money from businesses. We will look at Nextdoor. We will also ask our members, who's had a great experience with this type of service provider in our area, and then we will connect that member with that service provider. You don't have to worry about doing that research. So that's important. The other part is most of all of our members are also volunteers. Some of them are not, but part of it is you get a chance to give back. How many of you talk about, I've been aged out, people don't pay attention to me anymore. They don't think I have anything to offer. Well, that's not true. I mean, how much information and life experience and skills do you have to share with somebody else? Members appreciate feeling that they're still part of the community. Don talked about full service and social service members. Full service members get the whole shebang. They get everything, they get all the services. We're working on getting various discounts. We don't want to make it all about things you can get on the cheap, but these are actually kind of value added. You get a 20% discount at Third Place Books down in the Commons at Lake Forest Park on any purchase. This consumer checkbook, I'll tell you, that is that group. We're lucky here in Puget Sound, it's not nationwide, it's nationwide, but for major metropolitan areas. They do assessments of home services, home health providers, pet services, personal services, financial planners, pretty much everything that you can think about to run a household and your home. They do research, they do some amazing articles. They also do like a secret shopper kind of a service to see how much people are really charging for the services they say they're charging. And so you get a chance to look at both quality and price. So you get a discounted membership if you want to sign up for that magazine. We also just added, because we love our senior centers, even if they're older and we're looking to improve them, we said, you know, what can we do to foster our commitment to helping people stay socially active, not duplicating services, and bringing people together. First-year membership in a senior center in our NNN territory, which could be any of it, Linwood, Lake Forest Park, Shoreline Lake Forest Park, Edmonds, Mountlake Terrace, senior centers, NNN's gonna pay for that. Or if you're already a member, pay for the renewal. We want to connect people in every way possible. So social members get access to all of the social things we do, all of the things that Don talked about. We've got a live at the Met opera series coming up if you're an opera lover. We're gonna go to the Regal Theater in Wood. I mean, we're not going to New York, but it would be nice. Don sponsors, got a trip going to a woodworking shop if you are into woodworking. We've got a chocolate tour coming up. We've got he mentioned the fall tour in Plato. So we're doing things that people want. We got a game night, we got a book club coming together. So everybody who's a social member gets that. Next slide. This is important.
Okay, this is just our spend rate. We really got active at the beginning of this year, and year to date, our spending is in 3 big chunks. Background checks, because we do a background check on all the volunteers, as our members would expect us to do. Insurance, because you have to have insurance to operate these days. And the village-to-village membership, which really helps us on a number of fronts, but one of the key ones is the 240 villages that Darcy talked about are different stages in their evolution. And we're here, and they've moved along, and we're able to talk to them and figure out what's in our future, what should we be planning for. And one of the things we've learned is, over time, these portions will shrink. We'll have more revenue that we can put into the bank. Eventually, we'll probably need to come up with some staff, part-time or full-time. But before we do that, we want to make sure we can pay them. And so we want to have some money in the bank to do that. But this is what we're doing so far. About 8% of our expenses right now are going to sort of general administrative stuff. That's marketing, mail, stuff like that.
Yeah, so we're actually pretty proud that we're at 82% efficiency. I mean, that is, that's like kind of top of line in terms of how responsible you're going to spend the money. Now, here's the money shot. Membership dues. First of all, first and foremost, nobody gets turned away because they can't afford to be a member. Nobody. We'll figure it out. Part of that we'll get into the reserves. When we have a bigger reserve fund, it's going to make it even easier. But our dues are actually very consistent with what other villages are charging across the country. Some are higher, a few are lower. So it's $600 a year for an individual, or $900 a year if it's a family. Now, if you think about how many times if you use Uber, or if you do any outsourced services, handyman services, stuff like that, and you have to find them yourself, and they don't personalize the service, and they don't wait for you, and, they're not necessarily background checked. We don't do fingerprint checks. Okay, just somebody else asked that. No, we don't. That's what the full service membership dues are. Social is $120 a year. And again, those go right to the heart of how it's just helping us run the business. And this is, like I said, this is something that we feel strongly about in terms of some people will give more, some people have given more because they see the value, others can't afford it. You know, they have to do something a little bit less. And what will happen, and for somebody who's interested in becoming a member, they reach out to us. They get a personal, private, in-home interview. That during that interview, we're looking for a few things. Number one, are we able to meet that prospective member's expectations? Because if we look at it and say, geez, you know, this person maybe is kind of past the idea of living in their own home. We'll be candid and say no. During that same interview, though, we're also assessing what are your needs? How often do you think you're going to need this? We're going to really think through that. with somebody. We're not gonna say, oh, just sign them up. That's not our goal. We are a true neighbor. I mean, we shop in the same places, right? So the other thing that we will do though is we'll find out during that interview whether there is a hardship. You know, whether the money is just a deal breaker. And we've heard that from some people. They won't even call because that can't do it. We don't want to discourage people paying full because again, we need that to run the business. But we also don't want somebody to feel embarrassed or feel that they simply are left out when they really could benefit from the service. Volunteers, backbone of our business. For those of you who are interested in volunteering, have the time, the energy, the ability, you get to name your ticket. We don't ask for a commitment on 1 day a week, 2 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 hours. You tell us what, when, and how. What was the question we got? We talked to another community group, and the question was, remember, was the prospector was looking really concerned. Said, what if somebody wants to go to SeaTac? Oh my gosh, I would love to drive, but I'm not going to SeaTac. I said, you don't have to. You get to set your own boundaries. There are 3 things you have to agree to. 1, love and you have to agree to a background check. You don't have to worry about 2 years. You have to sign a confidentiality agreement because we hold that near and dear. We will not divulge what's going on in another member's home, even within our own group. And 3, if you choose to drive, you have to have a driver's license and you have to let us check your driving record. Oh, you have to have insurance. So that's kind of the heart and soul of it. But if you don't want to provide services or your time in any way I don't want to get up close and personal with somebody. Well, you know, we could use a lot of other help. There's a few of us really working the daylights out of this, and we think it would be great to have people who have creative ideas who say, you know what, I'd like to work on that social committee. I'd like to help you guys do public outreach. I'd like to help. I'd like to do this, but I don't want to actually go into the members. That's okay. We also need board members. Anybody up for that? Or if you know of somebody or somebody who would be good, we're asking for volunteers because they truly make the neighbors helping neighbors concept come to life.
Darcy, just real quick, I wanted to ask where we're at in terms of, I know we ran over with the last section, and I'm very sorry about that. What is our estimated time for when this part is going to be complete?
We have 2 more slides.
We're done, almost done. So this is the close. We are about neighbors helping neighbors. Community makes this work. We've got a sign-up sheet in the back. Some of you signed up. Probably didn't know you were signing up for the NNN sheet, but we thank you. We won't sell your email or anything. What I'd like to do though is ask questions of you. First of all, is this information something that you didn't know when you first came in?
Yep.
Yes. Did you learn, is it something that from your perspective, as you came in here and you started thinking, because I know we talked to some folks before the meeting, you've had personal experiences, right, with this. So what questions do you have or what suggestions do you have for how we can get the word out?
How do you balance the supply and demand of these services? I mean, for a fixed amount each year or each month, people in this system could ask for all kinds of things, frankly, without limit, apparently.
Right. There are a few things, like there's a again, nothing that requires a professional license. The guideline is maybe 3 transportation requests a week, but you know, we're pretty flexible. We've had so far, 10 requests a month, and we have 21 members. Oh, no, I'm sorry, we just got 2 more, 23 members, and 15 or 18 volunteers. So again, there's overlap with members plus volunteers. We haven't had to turn anybody away yet, which is very exciting.
So at the moment, we're volunteer rich.
Mm-hmm.
We have volunteers waiting
Really?
to do something.
Yes.
Great.
And we don't have enough demand for them. So we're actually looking for members who will demand services or requests.
Darcy, I can see how Morning Park Neighborhood Association could support with getting the word out, if you would like to partner with me about how to incorporate this, because I do think this would be a great service to, as long as there is no financial absolute requirement, then I think we can have that. I mean, obviously, we need people to pay to support the administration of this, but as long as they're, people who have financial hardship could still have this in our neighborhood, I think it's appropriate that we could participate with that.
That would be great, and I welcome the suggestions, and we'll certainly bring them in. So that's thank you. Other questions?
Do you guys seek funding from like foundations that support?
Yes, we just filed our first grant request. Again, we're new into this. I think we had a volunteer who has some background in that. She's, I will do the grants.
Great.
So
Great.
she's joined a couple of organizations about grant writing and fundraising. So we're trying to get connected. If you have ideas, we would love to hear them. But yeah, that's other villages. Some of them are really fortunate. They've got phenomenal endowments. We would like to get to that point. We're just, it's kind of young.
Mature villages have like probably about 40% of their funding comes from memberships.
Yeah.
The balance comes from other forms, grants, endowments, things like that.
And that's our mission, that's our goal.
Are you on volunteermatch.com?
No, but I personally am, but
Thanks.
No, that's a great idea.
Yo.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you very much.
I think Sylvia has done that.
We are, oh,
Okay, because when I retired, that's where I went, and I did not say this, and I'm kind of tied up with about 4 different other organizations now.
I did when we moved here 5 years ago from Chicago, and this was for our grandson who was born, and I went to volunteer for that too. What can I do? Where can I find my niche here?
Do you work with people who are in retirement homes?
That is a good question, and
Yes.
Let me just suggest that while the idea is to stay at home, many people are in retirement homes and they're at various levels of functionality.
Right.
And the retirement homes often, I've become an expert on this in the last 2 years, with grandma, somebody else's grandma, the homes offer a variety of different kinds of things. But at least on your social thing here, it might be quite interesting for people who are a little more spry than some of their fellows in these homes to participate in your game nights or whatever you do.
Absolutely. That's a
So
great
there's
idea.
all kinds of, we spent quite a bit of time looking at different places that grandma might go. And I'm now an instant expert on some of the local places in
Tom,
Shoreline.
we're gonna sign you.
And they vary, but that might be a rich, target-rich environment for you, so to speak.
Yeah, we say definitely that, when we say home, we don't mean house. We
Uh-huh.
mean wherever you live. We're talking about your neighborhood, your community, or the place that you reside. And even, things like shopping, sometimes I just like to go out and go shopping for yarn, and that might not be something that the home has,
Sure.
is on their tour.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, thank you for your
Okay.
time, your interest, your energy. We are really excited about being part of this neighborhood association and making it a true vibrant community for all of us.
Yeah, this is very exciting.
Great,
Thank you.
And
Thanks a lot.
Thank you
Yeah.
both very much for your volunteering.
yeah.
All the work that you're putting into this.
Well, we're looking ahead.
So were you aware that the food bank is?
By the way, very nice
Yeah.
slides. You must have
She
a
does.
pro doing it. Very nicely done.
Yeah,
Gee.
yeah, we were lucky.
Prints
to
not
make
too
it
small,
along.
lots of color,
That's
not too
great.
many
Thank you
things,
all
but that's a
much
very
for
professional
coming tonight.
presentation.
The meeting is
So you
officially
did
over,
a
and help
research,
yourself
a lot of
to some
research into
snacks.
homes.
Keep going.
Yes, yes, let me turn this off.